Crystal, we have a week off.
Yes, we do. What are you doing? Where are you?
I am sitting here with you, planning what we're going to do on our week off.
There you go. Okay. I didn't mean now. I mean by the time our listeners are listening.
Oh, well, the sad news is I'm getting ready for this big trip to Greece, which we'll talk about in the future.
Oh, that's
what do you mean?
I hate trips to Greece. I really hate trips to Greece.
Oh,
they're
horrible.
So much fun.
I know, all that beauty in one place.
Oh, the Mediterranean, fresh fish out of the Mediterranean.
Mediterranean is so med. So mad.
Right. It's so mad.
As all the kids say. Well, we've got a great episode for everybody today, though, Crystal. It was funny because we were talking about what to share with our adventures on the week off, and we came up with something really good.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about it because a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have money to travel. It's expensive. It's this, it's that." But hey, wait till you hear what we have, what you're gonna listen to very soon.
Back in 2020, we talked to travel writer Heather Jacks. Heather was doing everything she could because 2020 was COVID time. And so she was writing all kinds of stuff online about better days and times when she was actually out and about traveling. So she created a new job to work for Howard Schultz, the guy that made Starbucks huge.
Oh, okay.
But you thought it was somebody else?
Of Charles Schultz.
The Peanuts creator?
Yes.
Welcome to Crystal's View of the Universe.
Crystal's brain farts.
She's facilitated wine and bourbon tastings, ferried pigs for a guy, lived in the outback, slept full time in a bus named Bubba.
Nice.
You're stuck on the pigs?
It's getting better and better.
I know.
It is. That wow.
Heather writes for Fodors. Again, another word I can't pronounce. Fodor. Okay. Is it Fodors? Fodors. I don't know, but I like those travel guides. I own a bunch of them.
Yeah, you do. We've talked about those.
She writes for them. She writes for other outlets. She keeps a blog. She's done modeling. She's been a teacher. But back in 2020, we talked to Heather about how she bartered, the crazy stuff she bartered so that she could go travel.
You said
oh, good point. Yes. Back on the Stack and Benjamin show, which means, and I'm glad you brought that up, Crystal, we're not going to play the entire episode because a lot of it talks about COVID and talks about money stuff. We just cut out just the interview. So a little bit of a short show today, about 25 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we're back next week.
Yay. So let's hear from Joe and Heather and co.
Ready for adventure? From vacation to staycation and from the mountains to the beach. This is the Stacking Adventures podcast.
Heather Jacks was raised in Indian land in southeastern Oregon until age 15 when she left. And of course, then she didn't just go, across to Washington or down to California. Nope, she went to Australia as an experimental exchange student, in quotes. She came back at 16, went to college, and began traveling. During the 80s, she was in radio. She recently hopped on an Amtrak train and traversed the country. By the end of that trip, she had over 10,000 miles on planes, trains, and her bus, Bubba the bus, a short bus she purchased in Nashville. We're going to talk to her about Bubba here, converting him into a tiny home. And now she lives the schoolie life full time. She's got a fantastic blog. She's got an amazing story. We found her because Cheryl was reading about her and said, you got to try to get this woman on. And I'm so happy that she decided she would come on. Heather Jacks joining us on today's show. And on my dad's shortwave radio, it's my new friend, somebody I've been so excited to talk to. Heather Jacks joins us. How are you?
Hello, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here, and life is beautiful.
Well, but a big question you must get, Heather, all the time is, where is here right now?
Right now, it is in the bathroom and the shower stall of a Wynn Hotel in New York City in Manhattan. That's where it is at this moment.
That is fantastic. Making the shower your studio.
I am, yes. Yes, you learn to improvise a lot when you live on a bus full time.
Well, and tell me about the bus. First of all, how did the bus get named Bubba?
I bought this bus 2 years ago in Nashville, Tennessee, and that is a Southern name. And I bought it. It was a Nashville, Tennessee Titans tailgating bus. It was by the football team. They used it as a tailgating bus. So I bought it. And Bubba seems like the right name. It's a Southern name, although now he's purple. So, people are like, oh, you need to rename it. I'm like, no, it's still Bubba. Everyone in the South is Bubba.
Wait, it is so funny. I just moved back to Texarkana, Texas, and you're right. I have 2 friends named Bubba, and I probably know 4, and they're always the nicest guys too. Your schoolie's got to be nice.
It's the best schoolie ever. He has never let me down. He's happy to take me to nice restaurants or dive bars just as easily, and so I love Bubba. Bubba's my love.
How did COVID affect your lifestyle? If you're living in Bubba and you're traveling around the nation and seeing what you want to see and doing what you want to do, how did COVID change the game for you, Heather?
When I first started the traveling, I had a great plan. I had my National Parks Pass, which is often where you stay. I had my Planet Fitness Pass. COVID happened, and of course, those things closed down. So I was really it was a fix. I'm not going to lie. And I didn't really have a place to park. I didn't have a place to dump my toilet. I didn't have a place to shower. And so I started just getting super creative, and you kind of have to during Corona. One of the things I did was I bartered. I would approach random people and try to explain to them like, hey, I need to park my bus. I don't actually need any facilities right now, but I'd sure like to park my bus here on your field. And, is there something I can do for you to do that? And I did that a lot. So I spent about a month in the Umpqua Valley in the wine area of this southern part of Oregon doing exactly that. I did all kinds of things. I groomed horses. You'd be surprised. So I'm over 50. I don't know if I can say that, but I'm well over 50. And
you can say I'm over 52, Heather, but I think the rule is that I can say, or you can say that, but I can't say that. So you're good.
Yeah, the thing is that you've learned all these. What you do is you dust off a lifetime of skills, and they're valuable. So things like typing on a typewriter are valuable today. Learning knowing how to drive a stick shift, which I know how to do, was valuable. So it was very interesting. All these things that that I know how to do had value in this kind of bartering economy that I really had to enter into, and I just had to so it's a lot of younger people who are out there on the road living full time in a schoolie. And again, so mine's a schoolie. That means it's a short bus. Yeah. It is 19 feet long. That is 80 square feet of living space. So that's very small. So it's a very short little bus. A lot of young people do that. And one of the things I notice is that, and this is just going to be a rash generalization, but somehow showering and living on a bus tend to be mutually exclusive out there. And that was not my case. I needed to shower on a regular basis. And so I bartered for showers a lot. When COVID first happened, I was actually in California, and I had left just a little bit before Gavin Newsom closed the state down. And so then I ended up on Paiute land in eastern Nevada, and I bartered a lot out there. Then while I was heading up there, I actually ended up transporting a little pot-bellied pig in exchange for gas. I have a bus, the pig fit, so I was able to do that. And it's crazy what people need and what you can offer. And if you just get creative and just kind of let it roll, you're like, hey, I think I can do that. And so that's what I did a lot.
I want to dive into some of these stories. Let's start off with the letter to the editor story, because this is when your typing on a typewriter skill came in handy, I think.
Came in very handy. And it was an alpaca farm. So there was a lot of space. Bubba could easily fit there, and I needed a place to park. And was ran by this old guy named Charlie. He must have been 150. And so I was like, well, is there something I can do? And he goes, well, I'd like you to, or do you know how to type? He actually asked me if I knew how to type. And this was his words, on one of the old typewriters, not that newfangled thing. And I was like, actually, I do. So I typed letters to the editor. He was very upset with many of the things that were going on in his town. So I wrote a lot of venomous letters to the editor. But they still have newspapers in some of those places. And so I did that for a couple hours, and then I had a place to be that night. It was really great. And the alpacas were amazing. I actually got to knit a hat. I still have the hat. there's an alpaca on his farm that he named Antonio Banderas. And I don't know why he named it that, but that was the name. It was his first alpaca. So we took its fiber and I knitted an alpaca hat. I still have that hat. I love that hat. You can see it on my Instagram. I really like that hat.
That's awesome. You know, I don't know about you, but I still prefer the feel of the old typewriter. You write way more than I do. I just write scripts for the show. Do you prefer that old style feel?
You know, I prefer to write actually with my very beautiful ballpoint pen and my beautiful white paper. That is actually my preferred method. I am trying now to do the voice text thing. I'm not loving it because they often just don't understand me. And then I get crazy things that I don't even understand.
I get that from Siri without even trying. I'm like, I didn't say anything remotely close to that.
Yeah, I have that. I have that experience.
Tell me about the pig. You traded by moving a pig. That's one hell of a story.
I was actually in Luning, Nevada. What had actually happened was my radiator had blown up. And so another thing that's really been amazing for me is how mechanical I am. If you're going to live on a bus, you definitely need to understand how that bus works. And I'm really good. I am amazing myself at how great I have become mechanically. And anyway, but that radiator was a bit more of I bit off a bit more than I could chew with that one. And so I pulled out the radiator and then I realized that it was really a complex issue. It's a 1989, essentially it's a van. So everything is like in a little, teeny space as big as a chair.
Well, I think especially those vans, right? I mean, they're known for having it in a little wedged in spot.
Yeah, it was terrible. So this trucker had come up and he was actually helping me like put it back in and put water in it so that I could, and I could only go about 9 miles down the road and then it would be bone dry again. So finally I was at a place. Not only was my radiator broken, now I was also out of gas because the nearest gas was 181 miles away. And my bus wasn't my day. And so this guy came up and I, was explaining my situation and he said, well, I don't have enough gas to get you up to where I was headed. And he said, but I do have enough to get you to Luning. So he said, I'm on my way to visit Lance. And he goes, and I got a pig. If you take it over there, he'll give you gas. And I said, well, it's really going to depend on the pig. Because honestly, if it's a boar, we're going to have to hard pass on that. But he brought me a little pot-bellied pig. He put it in my bus and I delivered it like 80 miles down the road and got gas, got a fresh breakfast from Lance's wife. It's a crazy place, man.
Hopefully no bacon with breakfast.
Yeah, well, I kind of sense that might have been the demise of the pig, but that is I just needed gas. But this guy has this big old dilapidated shop out there. And it was dilapidated, man. This is something out of Breaking Bad. You're just like, I was lacking faith that he was going to be able to assist me. But he opens this big door that's practically rolling off the hinges. And he has got a collection of Harley Davidsons in there that would just are awe-inspiring. He had an Indian, he had the knuckleheads. It was shocking. So I spent most of that day with him actually just looking at all his treasures. I happen to like bikes, so it worked out really well. But I tend to get a lot of that. I tend to talk to people. It's weird in Corona because you really have to be wary when you're approaching people now. It's a little different. Whereas before, I think, especially on the country, they're much more like able to help you. But now there's a little more like people are standing off a little bit. But I still will talk to people and smile with my eyes. Usually once they realize that I'm a girl out here doing this and then they've like reconciled in their mind that, wow, she's kind of crazy. Then they're like, okay, how can we help?
Well, that was what I wondered, though, Heather. You're talking about how you were wondering if he could even help you before you got to see the Harleys. Is there ever a time? I mean, I think that I might be just a little afraid of some of these people. I don't know who they are. I don't know anything about them. Is there ever a time when you feel concerned for your safety?
I've only had 2 instances that I have been concerned, and both of them, honestly, I'm very acutely aware of safety measures and especially that women have to take when they're traveling alone on the road. I wish that wasn't the case. It is the case, and so I have pepper spray. I have a taser. I have an air horn. Best thing you could buy. Air horn is awesome. So there've only been 2 times. One was in Wyoming, and I had spent 10 days camping in the Grand Tetons, and it was amazing. Oh my gosh, blew your mind. First time I've ever seen a bald eagle in real life. First time I saw a bighorn sheep. Oh man, Wyoming. And I had a situation out there that really, really could have gone sideways, really in a bad way. And a law enforcement official came randomly to the middle of nowhere, which is where I was at. I was out on Forest Service land and was able to thwart that situation.
Wow.
And I have lived that a lot in my mind since, just realizing all of just those errors that I made in judgment to put myself in a situation like that brief moment. And then I recently got robbed in Nashville, which kind of sucked. It was broad daylight, 10 o'clock in the morning. I was filling up my tank at a car wash right on the side, not in the cubicle, like on the main road. And these two guys just straight up, man, came just right up 10 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, took my generator, took my refrigerator, just robbed me. And so I phoned the police, and there's tons of pawn shops, which is probably where all that stuff ended up. But so that was like, again, another moment of just like, oh, that brief moment, they were very bold and very fast. And had they paused, I probably would have been like, ooh, like I might have, alerted me, but they didn't. They just walked right up. And yeah, I was straight up robbed at 10 o'clock in the morning in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wait a minute. Did they sneak around to the other side of the car, or did they straight up tell you that they were robbing you?
No, absolutely not. They walked right up to me. They grabbed the stuff they wanted. And then I was like, what's going on? They're like, oh, what's going on is y'all probably better just need to turn around and pretend like you don't see shit.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I was here's the bright side of that story for me. I put up an Instagram story, and the guys from the Margaritaville Hotel right in downtown Nashville, they responded to that story. They're like, oh, this is so lame that you got robbed in Nashville. Come down here. We're going to set you up for the night so you can enjoy downtown Nashville on us. So I went and had a good old time, drank bourbon, met boys, listened to country music. It was all good.
I was thinking it was like a lose-win situation, turning lemonade or lemons into lemonade. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll always bring the vodka, so it works out.
Well, and it's interesting because the amount of time that you've been doing this, I mean, twice is not that much. So let's talk about the positive side, though. You said that you approach people, and as you know, Heather, people are not, don't go up to people and say, hey, can I barter this? Can I do this? Can I, how do you charm people into even considering bartering with you?
I was, as you may know, was raised on Indian land until I was 15, and barter was a way of life. We didn't have money. Money didn't exist on Indian land when I was growing up there. So bartering just is supernatural for me. And it's a little rusty now, but it's just a very natural. You always have something of value that somebody else, it just makes sense. I love bartering, but I'm also not terribly intimidated by people. I mean, if they seem sketchy, then you got to trust your gut. You're like, yeah, I probably shouldn't approach them. But yeah, growing up on Indian land, definitely that is how at the time I grew up, that was the economy. So I'm very comfortable with that.
But are you saying then that you hear this thing about 10,000 hours of practice, right? Are you saying that you've had 10,000 hours and if somebody wants to get better, just do it?
No, I don't ascribe to that philosophy of 10,000 hours. And it's a beautiful philosophy, and it probably works for some people. I really ascribe, I'm going to just quote Tesla. And Tesla said, if you want to understand the mysteries of the universe, think of frequency, energy, and vibration. And that's what it is. So I trust my gut, but I left when I was 15, and my grandmother had the idea that I should go to white school. So she sent me to white school far away, and it was a terrible experiment. But while I was there, I learned about the exchange program, and this was back in the 80s. So I became an experimental exchange student. And what that meant was I went to Australia for 10 and a half months, almost a year by myself. I was 15 years old. And I lived in the outback, which is basically Indian land, but halfway around the globe.
Right.
And I was like, well, so apparently God does have a sense of humor, whatever. But again, so I was in that, but that's really where the wanderlust began. When I came back, I had a hard time fitting in before. I just really had a hard time fitting in after I came back. I came back to high school. They put me in high school, and high school kids, they're going to prom and they're doing winter formals and they're making out with boys under bleachers. And I was living on a sheep station and in an opal mining, so I had no relatability. So I finished school at a very young age and started college. And yeah, I just have been traveling. That just made sense to me. And I've always been super blessed, just blessed. My biggest job was with Starbucks Coffee Company. That came about because it was, again, before internet. I had read an article and Howard Schultz was quoted in it, and it was back in the early 90s. I wrote to him, I started writing to him, and it would get mailed every month. And I'd be like, hey, when you're ready to open stores in a remote market, I'm your girl. I'm your girl. And after about a year, they sent me a plane ticket, because there used to be a day you could do that. And I went to Seattle and he was hired. So I worked for Starbucks on and off for 23 years. But when I first started, they only had 95 stores. So I was going around and just helping open a store, and then I'd go do my thing for however long I wanted to go do my thing for. And then I'd come back and open a store. So it worked out brilliantly. So I'm very used to that. I'm very used to even with someone like Howard Schultz at that time being like, hey, I'm your girl. If you need someone to do this, I'm the person. This is what I can do. I'm very confident in that. And it's kind of bartering, because that job didn't exist when I talked, when I did that. It wasn't a job that existed. He was like, I hope one day we can be in Portland, Oregon. That was where he was at that time. So
with that few number of stores, were you talking with Howard directly?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's
much more accessible.
Sure, right.
People.
Yeah. No, at that point in the store, I'm sure it's just Heather and her buddy Howard just having a chat.
I don't know we're buddies, but now. But yeah, I have pictures. In fact, I saw him a few months ago briefly at an event, and I showed him pictures, and his wife was like, oh my gosh, I remember that hair. I remember when he used to have hair.
Well, you make money while working on the road. And I'm sure a question you're asked a lot is, do you have any tips for people to actually make money while you're on the road? I mean, when you work for Starbucks, obviously you had a paycheck and you could travel.
Right.
Now you're always drumming up business. How do you make money and travel at the same time?
I chase gigs. So that doesn't work for everybody. And it shouldn't. But I will tell you this, when I have my teaching credential, but you can get your TEFL or your TESOL certification. And that's a big boom industry right now. I mean, with online teaching, great money. I hated it. I did it for just a few times. I was like, oh, I have to get a schedule. You have to stop. You have to log in and actually teach. And it was all just too much for me. I'm not going to lie. But it is a great way to make money. Online teaching. Great way to make money. And there's tons of great companies that you can teach regular classes. You can teach business people. There's even ones that work like apps like Uber and Lyft. And then you can just sign on. And if somebody wants an English class, there you are. It's really a brilliant, brilliant way to make money. I didn't love it. So I did not do that. I did it a couple of times. I was like, yeah, I don't like this. I don't like stopping and having to get organized. I just don't. If I'm driving and wanting to go somewhere, that's just what I'd rather do. So some of the ways I use Craigslist a lot. I chase a lot of gigs on Craigslist. I am very active on LinkedIn, and I am very active on Instagram. And I connect with people and just talk to them. And most of my jobs come that way. So for an example, last month or 2 months ago, I started in Denver, Colorado, and I did a tutoring for a Thai woman who had only been in the country for 3 months. And then I did a mock jury. I was like a mock juror on a Zoom call, in a pretend, court case. And these are all paid things. Then I went and I directed traffic at a movie theater for 3 nights, 3 different places, but 3 nights in a row. I live in a bus, so I can go, right? I went to Memphis and I voiced a climate change robot. I did an infomercial for an office chair. Oh yeah. If you're willing to do stuff, there's work. And so I did an infomercial for an office chair, which was pretty, that paid pretty well. And right now I'm in New York because I have a couple of modeling contracts. So I do modeling, which is great money when you can get it. COVID definitely impacted that. There's a ton of things you can do. And there's lots of freelance work. If you are a freelancer and, you always read those books, give up your day job and, make 30,000 in 30 days off a blog or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know those books because I have a Kindle full of them, but, I have not had the experience of that. I'm still not a 30, millionaire. So there is a lot of great freelance work. So for example, if you're a graphic artist or you can proofread or these are things you like doing, man, there's good sites for that. Readsy is a great site for that. Readsy is a great one. And the other one is 99D, which is a little site it's a big site actually out of Oakland.
That's 99 Designs, right?
Yeah. I, as a buyer, use them regularly and have had great experiences. And I always think that, if you're creative, if you can draw or if you can proofread or you can, design, I just think these would be maybe great things to do. But my personal experiences with teaching, I think that's really got great potential if you enjoy teaching and can keep some kind of a schedule. Otherwise, chasing gigs, I get a lot off Instagram. So one of the things I've been doing a lot lately is doing bourbon tastings out on the bourbon trail.
Oh, that's tough. I bet that's got to be a tough job. Somebody's got to do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't
man.
like bourbon. I used to work in the wine industry down in Southern California, so I do a lot of wine stuff. But again, you'd just be surprised. And right now, Corona, the way it's, manifesting across our country, and I've seen it manifesting in varied ways. Right now in New York, it is closed down. This city is, I almost cried when I arrived here yesterday because I used to live in New York, and it's just a shell of the city that it was even last year. It was like this weird, I was just feeling the world could end, and I'm going to be out here on my bus, like Mad Max going across, this, but soon that passed. But it is weird when you come out of places after being gone for 10 days, and then you're like, what happened?
You're like that. Right. You're like that meme that I'm sure you've seen, that you've been prepping for this your whole life. You're kidding me? I already have a bus. I know how to stay at a national park. I can go off in the wilderness. I'm good.
I'm good. I stayed on a lot of Forest Service lands. And I'm a huge fan of the Forest Service. Everything I sell, I have a little Patreon page. I sell some of my articles. I have a current column in Photos Travel. It is not a lot, but man, I donate right back to the National Parks Conservation. I'm a big fan of the Forest Service. They are amazing every time. Without them, I wouldn't have had the experience I've had. Because what happens is I go to a town or a place or a space, and I phone, and the Forest Service will answer that phone. And I say, hey, I've got this 19-foot schoolie, blah, blah, blah. They're like, you know what? Here's a place I think you would do really well. You're not going to have trouble getting up there. You're going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. And they are wonderful. I even went and picked up one, they had printed maps for me because, I'm on a bus and I don't have a printer. They had left in Tillamook, and they had left a Post-it note, just so you know, you're amazing. And I still have it. And I'm like, oh, Forest Service, I love you. Those people love their job, is what it is. They're like, yeah, somebody's coming out to the Tetons, in the middle of when there's nobody out here.
They do love their job. We just did 7 national parks while we traveled west, and all of the rangers that we met they were such nature geeks in the best way possible. It was awesome. The way they'd nerd out about everything from the birds that were around to plate tectonics to everything. I wanted to ask you, by the way, on that note, you've been to so many of the national parks out there. Do you have a favorite?
I was going to ask you that. The park I haven't been to is Bryce, and that is the one I wanted to go to, and I didn't make it yet.
We didn't do Bryce either. We've gone to, and we didn't do Arches either, but we did go to Zion. Yeah. And, but not this time, but I got to tell Angel's Landing. I almost lost my crap on doing the Angel's Landing thing. I thought I was going to die up there, Heather.
So I've been out here on the Appalachian Trail for the last, when I got back with you, I was in the Appalachian Trail, and oh my goodness. Woo, but I definitely thought there were times I was like, I have pictures of the signs that say, for the next mile, you're going to be on your hands and knees scrambling. And I'm like, okay, people do this all the time. How much scrambling? And they literally mean that you are scrambling. So you get up there and I'm tasting metal in my mouth, man, my head between my knees. I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, oh my God, am I this out of shape? Am I going to have a heart attack? I have my bear horn. I've got my air horn. I've got my air horn. Someone come. And, but then you emerge, you summit something, and oh my word, I've really gone into mountain climbing during I've been across the country 3 times now on my bus, but this last trip especially, because boy, you climb a mountain or even a big hill, in my case, let's just call it what it is. It just teaches you to rise above your own limitations. And once you're there, man, abundance and beauty as far as the eye can see. That is what you see. There's nothing else. And man, I'm all about that. And it just really puts some perspective on life and the way things are. And yeah, I just love it. And then of course I sing John Denver, music, because
you have to.
You have to, like a given.
I think you're contractually obligated at that point.
And I really like the Grand Tetons. I had no expectation when I went there, so I think that my mind was just blown because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have an expectation. So I went there and I was just like, oh man, Wyoming, now you're just showing off up here. That's the way I felt about Big Bend and about Death Valley. It attracts such unique people, number one, and you get these crazy stories that I just love hearing.
and you find beauty in places where there's supposed to be none. I mean, everything is named after devil, Satan, demon. I mean, every single thing about these places, because they're places. I mean, when we were in Death Valley a few weeks ago, every sign said you could die here, which is, you could, but it was surreal and beautiful and dangerous all in one. So that was pretty neat. Heather, I would love to talk forever, but I am totally out of time. I'm going to do a few things. Number one, guys, if you want to follow Heather's travels, her blog is travelswithbubba.com. Of course, it's called travelswithbubba.com, I should say. Just a girl in her bus named Bubba. We'll link to that on our show notes page. Also, you wrote a book a few years ago that I want to make sure that I mention. That is My Headdress is on Fire. Stories from a white girl growing up on and off Indian land, which, I mean, I'm looking at the Goodread reviews and people loving it. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And be blessed, be safe, be sane, and be spiritually uplifted. That's my hippie stuff.